Coming to you from BLC Studios in Mankato, Minnesota, this is the Bethany Vikings podcast. Hosted by Brock Aker, Jake Anderson, and Gabe Stace. It's time to go inside Bethany Athletics.
Welcome into the Bethany Vikings podcast. My name is Jake Anderson alongside Gabe Stace. Gabe, how you doing?
I'm doing well. It's good to be here.
Season 3, Episode 3 here as we get ready for the Upper Midwest Athletic Conference Tournament. It was a wild weekend for the conference in general. A lot of just topsy-turvy upsets. All the seeding, some of the seeding came down to a coin flip, which we're going to get into in a bit. And just a lot of just kind of chaos. Welcome to March Madness, ladies and gentlemen. And yeah, want to get into it right away?
Let's go.
All right. So we'll start with women's basketball. 2 games this weekend. We're going to talk to Coach Lyle Jones in a bit about not only how he felt the games went, but then just overall the schedule, because he left the 2 probably toughest games in the conference schedule for the last weekend. A game at Northwestern, followed by a game at North Central, 2 of the top teams in the conference behind the Vikings. Let's get your overall takes on how those games went, Gabe.
Well, starting, with both those games, I thought Bethany really played great defense. Maybe the best defense that we've seen all year. They've been slipping a little bit. Even in the winning streak that they've had, a lot of it has been relying on their offense, and some of that was taken away, but the defense was really good.
We saw kind of like almost season low output from Hannah Geisfeld, causing other players to have to step up, notably Haley Meyer. What did Northwestern and North Central kind of do to take away Hannah in those games?
Well, North Central, they brought a press. It's kind of a pseudo press where they aren't actively trying to get a turnover, but they'll make you work it up the floor. But both of them play a zone where they really focus on taking away the middle. And as you know, Hannah loves to be in the high post. That's where Coach Jones really wants her. So that's their focus on trying to take away that. It'll be interesting moving forward. Can they try to get maybe Hannah on the wing a little bit? Maybe go high-low with Hannah actually as the low post, which we haven't seen a ton of. We've seen a little bit of this year, but not a lot. So it'll be interesting to see what can Coach Jones do to try to get Hannah more touches, because it's no secret. When Hannah touches the ball, our offense is better.
You talked about that, Hannah, being able to get touches and whatnot. Let's talk about those younger freshman guards and whatnot on the wing. How did you feel they kind of handled that press and handled those moments when, all right, Hannah can't get it going, somebody else has to step up?
Well, it's clear the trust that Coach Jones has in Ashanti Boykin. She's been playing a ton lately, and she's done a really nice job just bringing the ball up the floor. But overall, when Hannah is able to get the ball, Haley Meyer is such a good cutter. Laura also had some good cuts. I'm thinking especially in the game against Northwestern. But when those guards are cutting, and then you can have Alexis or Taryn or Ashley, when they get some ball reversal going, trying to knock down some threes, that's really what they're trying to do offensively.
So looking at the stats for that North Central game, you talked about Ashanti Boykin kind of being a player that, she's had to control a lot of the point and whatnot this year due to different injuries, and just kind of being like one of those other leaders, not a freshman, essentially is the way I'm trying to get at it. But 3 for 4 3-point shooting. We haven't seen Ashanti taking threes and shooting shots like that before.
No, it was good to see. I mean, she's been open a lot this year. I think teams have learned, hey, we can give her some space. Well, she finally took advantage of that space, especially in the fourth quarter, hit 2 huge threes, keying a comeback against North Central.
17 points for Haley Meyer to lead the Vikings in scoring in that one. Let's look at that Northwestern game. An overtime loss. If the Vikings had won that game, they would have clinched outright the regular season title, second year running that they've had to share that title with this Northwestern team. A lot of turnovers from the Vikings in that game, had 21 turnovers. Going into tournament play now, it definitely feels like the Vikings are going to have to key in not only on defense and keep up that defensive intensity, but they got to take care of the ball.
Yeah, and it's both on the pass and on the catch. A few times just see some mental lapses where, balls come in, they're open, and goes off their fingertips out of bounds. But especially on those passes, when teams are playing zones and packing up the middle, you've got to make sure of that pass, whether that's with a ball fake and then reverse, whatever it is, you've got to make sure that pass is going to get there on time and on target.
So we mentioned that overtime loss to the Eagles, and you might be wondering how the seeding works out. Well, the Vikings got the 1 seed, Eagles got the 2 seed. There wasn't much between them, though, and so much so that it came down to a coin flip, of all things, which is interesting to note because we're in an era now where there's a lot of attention to coin flips, especially you look at the NFL deciding games and whatnot. We just had a coin flip decide the seeding. So I want to ask you, Gabe, you're pulling up the sheet right now. What all goes into deciding the team or the seeds on a tiebreaker for the conference tournament?
Yeah, well, obviously beyond winning percentage in the UMAC, next it goes to head-to-head records. Obviously, Northwestern and Bethany split. Then it goes to records against all teams that are above you in the conference. Well, they're the 2 top teams. Then record in descending order, no losses there for either team. Then it goes to road conference record. They both lost to each other on the road. And then it goes to a coin flip. You got to wonder, is that something that the UMAC will look into to try to make it more controllable? But thank goodness for Vikings fans that should we make it that far, that that conference championship game in the tournament will be at home.
And 2 years ago, before all the COVID craziness happened, the pandemic hit and whatnot, the Vikings hosted their first conference championship game at the Sports and Fitness Center here on Bethany's campus. It was wild in there. It was jam-packed. Everybody was going nuts. The men's game was just before it, so the arena was just packed with fans and whatnot. So it's going to be interesting to see now if it gets to Bethany and we get that far and whatnot. Championship Saturday might be really loud and crazy again because those are 2 evenly matched teams going into that game if it gets down to Bethany and Northwestern.
For sure. Fan support will be huge. It can make the difference between a win or loss.
All right, let's transition over to the men's side of things. Men's basketball, 2 really, really tough losses to Northwestern and North Central, each by a point. Came down to the final possessions. Noah Alm of Northwestern hit a shot that probably hit the backboard and the rim like 5 or 6 times. I watched that and it bounced and then it hit the top of the backboard. Then it hit one side of the rim. Then it hit the other. Then it hit the front and then it went in. And it was like, how many more bounces could that ball take and just to go in and whatnot? And it felt like it just halted all the momentum that the Vikings had going for them heading towards this conference tournament.
Yeah, Northwestern seems to find a way to make tough shots at the end of games. That's something that the Vikings have struggled with in these tight losses. I mean, you look at offense down the stretch, almost non-existent against Northwestern. Then in the final 3 minutes against North Central, couldn't make a bucket until the final few seconds. So that's something. Free throws, too. I know we discussed if they make their free throws, they probably win the game against Northwestern. Brian
Smith in that Northwestern game had a 1-on-1 chance to put the Vikings up by 3. Ended up missing the front end of that. He's usually an 80% free throw shooter. I mean, that is really good free throw shooting, and just he missed the front end of a 1-on-1, and that allowed Noah Alm to go down and hit. I'll give Kyrie Mayfield credit on this one. He had some great defense on that play. Like Alm I think the size of Alm having a couple inches of height advantage just allowed him to shoot it over Kyrie and then got the shooter's touch off the bounces and whatnot. But, just a tough break there and what was just a crazy end to that one.
Yeah, you look at some of the playmakers that both Northwestern and North Central have. Sometimes they just make shots. That's the way basketball goes.
So looking at the conference standings now, Northwestern won outright the regular season championship. The Vikings had a chance that if they would have swept this weekend, they could have clinched a share of it. But with the win on Friday, that gave Northwestern the outright. Then 2 through 4 kind of got a little interesting. So I'll let you kind of walk through what happened and how all the tiebreakers went out with that, because we had North Central, Crown, and Bethany all tied at 9 and 5.
Yeah, as you mentioned, all at 9-5. So first thing, again, it's the head-to-head records. Well, this was interesting because North Central swept Bethany, Crown swept North Central, and Bethany swept Crown. So that was all a wash after all that. However, where Crown got the 2 seed was the cumulative record against all teams above them in the conference. They gave Northwestern their only UMAC loss of the season. So that gave them the 2 seed. Obviously, Bethany was swept by North Central, so that dropped us to 4.
So now looking at the games coming up that we have starting Tuesday, coverage of those games starting around 5:30 p.m. on Tuesday afternoon or evening. You can find coverage for that starting on blcvikings.com with the women's game against Northland. Last time we saw Northland, they gave a lot of looks defensively, and that's something that I'm going to ask Coach Jones about later in the podcast is they're able to shift their defense from a man-to-man to 2-3 to 1-3-1 to this, to that, to this, to that, half-court press, full-court press, different things like that. What do you think that does to a team psychologically where it's like you're coming down the floor and it's like, all right, what defense are they in now? Especially in the age we are in basketball where it's you have 30 seconds on that shot clock before you have to have a shot hit the rim.
Well, you've got a couple options. First thing, when you grab the rebound, you go. You run. Everyone's sprinting, and obviously we've seen all the outlet passes to Hannah this year where she just gets an easy layup and is out in front of everybody. Then the other option is, you slow it down, you analyze what defense they're in and try to work it around, get a quality look. But for me, the thing I'm looking at, Northland College obviously not being a big threat in the UMAC, the more defenses they can throw at us, the better moving forward.
Another thing too could be like if that game turns into a runaway, we could see Coach Jones maybe pull some players and give them rest for a potential matchup Thursday against the 4 or 5 seed, and possibly give his players rest and whatnot moving forward and things like that. So that could be another advantage for Bethany too. Whereas if they can come out the gates right away and not allow Northland to kind of hang around and whatnot, they could give like players like Hannah, players like Ashley, Taryn, Alexis, Haley Meyer, Laura, Ashante, like they could give all those players a little bit more rest and keep them fresher for Thursday when the team that they would play Thursday may not be as fresh.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think getting off to a strong start, as you mentioned, for that reason, would be ideal.
The Vikings this year, plus 12 in the first quarter, plus 90 in the fourth quarter. And we've seen them be pretty steady throughout on that defensive end too. So a lot to look forward to on Tuesday for the women's side, but now the men's side, which this is interesting because this men's team, I think the general feeling is they're probably the most dangerous because they are not a 4 seed. This team is too talented to be a 4 seed. Just a couple of losses, the difference in that. And they're facing a team in Superior that they could also surprise some people too. What are you looking forward to in that one?
No, Superior, like a few of the teams on the men's side, they have the ability, I think, to beat anyone just with how big and physical they are. So for the Vikings, obviously, if they can step up and try to counter that a little bit, hit some threes, I think that's going to be huge. Give them some confidence, give them some mojo back. I love to see some big-time shot making just to get the guys going a little bit.
So looking at the history between these two teams, Vikings overall 12-3, currently on a 6-game win streak dating back to February 22nd of 2020. 9-0 at home against the Yellow Jackets of Superior, 3-3 on the road. The 2 games this year, it was 68-66 up in Superior, and then you had a 79-66 here in Mankato back in February. So generally speaking, we should expect probably 66 points from Superior, just because that's what they hit in both games. But you get the feeling that we heard Schrupp and Nielsen say it, that their defense is going to carry them. They go as far as their defense allows them to. They're going to have to play some tough defense now, especially after winning this one, possibly having to go on the road to Northwestern, have to play in Northwestern, a place they haven't played since 2012. And then depending upon what happens on the other side of the bracket, they may either have a home game depending upon if there's a seed lower than the 4 seed, or they're going to have to go on the road again and try to win on the road to get back to that national tournament. So again, it really feels like their defense is going to have to carry them this postseason.
Yeah, and I tell you what, for the most part, their defense has been playing a lot better recently. Whether it's been in the second half of games, like we saw it against Crown at home, the game against Northwestern, I thought they played lights out defense pretty much the entire game. I mean, that's what kept them in the game, even when they didn't have the best offensive night. If they play great defense, they're very scary.
They held Northwestern to 68 points. I mean, Northwestern is a team, when they played them the first time, Northwestern, I think, had 96 or something like that. Like, they just went out and ran the floor, and it was a back-and-forth game. All it was shooting. This time, they went to Northwestern and brought the intensity on that defensive end and held them to 68 points. Really, we're a couple free throws away from potentially winning that game.
Yeah, and obviously, I'd have to think that's going to be the message from Garvin. We're going to get to that interview a little bit later on, but ask him how he'll approach that. But defense.
All right, let's move over to track and field now. A sport that I'm pretty well versed in and can kind of break things down. We're also going to have Coach Michael Dunn on in a little bit, as well as he'll talk about what he's looking forward to on the track side of things. I think you have to start out with the year that freshman Stephanie Whitbrod has brought to this Vikings team. With her addition and being able to just do almost everything and her athletic background and whatnot, Bethany has a solid chance to dethrone Minnesota Morris for a conference title, which would be the first track and field team title that Bethany's track and field program has ever seen, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, and you think of what that can do for recruiting, obviously attention. With all the success that Bethany Athletics has had in the past, to get the track and field team up to speed with that would be awesome to see.
I mean, if you're ever in the sports and fitness center and you look up at there's a whole row of banners essentially on the bleacher side across from where the teams sit that is just individual champions for cross country and track and field. There is no team banner up yet. So obviously hope that we can kind of pull that out and whatnot. And I think the general feeling is high and whatnot, but it's going to be a whole team effort. You're going to have everybody kind of in line with that. I'll ask you this. We have team sports like basketball where, everybody has to kind of be on board and whatnot. Track and field is often labeled as kind of an individual sport, but meets like this, how do you feel that like that team aspect kind of comes into play and whatnot, and like running for your team rather than running for yourself?
Yeah, you've got to give your best. Best way I can relate to it is in golf. Hey, say I don't have my best round going. I know that if I'm literally just playing for myself, I might try to, experiment a little bit, pack it in, send driver when I shouldn't. But when you're in that team environment, you've got to stay locked in. You have to say, hey, I might not be having my best day personally, but I've got to do everything I can to get to the finish line, to get myself pumped up for this jump, whatever it is, so that, if others are having their top day, you can be part of the solution to winning.
I'm glad you took it that way, because I knew in your golf background, obviously another sport that's kind of labeled as like more individual, but there is that team aspect too of trying to win a conference championship that way. Looking at the men's side of things, on the men's side, Wisconsin Superior, in talking with Coach Dunn before this, they're projected to win by 180 points, which, to put that into perspective, the second place team is only projected to score around 110 points, give or take. It would take the rest of the conference just to match the score of Superior's ending score based off of paper projections. But Bethany has the chance on the men's side to finish second, which would be the highest finish for a men's team at a conference meet like this. So a lot to still play for if you're the men's team. And Jake Marzinski, currently ranked 23rd in the nation in triple jump, looking to possibly break his UMAC record for indoor and triple jump. Any other things you're looking forward to out on the men's side?
Well, obviously, Jake's a headliner, yourself, but
awkward pause.
Right. But I'm sorry, what was the question?
Any other keys you kind of want to look forward to? We can talk about Jake. That is okay. We could talk about Marzinski for a little bit, because he's not only looking at possibly winning triple jump, he has long jump, he has 60-meter hurdles, and possibly a 4x4 banner to defend as well.
Yeah, and going back to the team thing, when you're projected to be that far behind, there's no defense in a competition like track and field or in golf, say. Does that give you any freedom as an athlete to just be like, okay, I just go out there and run? There's no, maybe the pressure's off you a little bit. Just go out and perform at best.
I think it definitely does, just because of the fact that you have nothing to lose, essentially. And, it's about as good of a foregone conclusion as you can. I mean, Superior, they have such a good distance program. They have such a good throws program. They can compete in pretty much everything else. They're looking at putting people in pole vault, just because our conference doesn't really have designated like pole vault people or athletes per se. So they're just able to throw kind of everything at the wind and be like, hey, we're just going to go out and get as many points as possible. For us, knowing that the gap is that big, the biggest thing is we're just trying to go catch a jersey, and we're trying to maybe steal some points and whatnot and see where we can get. For a lot of our team, this is the first time that they're having a conference meet like this. We talked about freshman Stephanie Whitbrod, but then Carter Jack, Josiah Hoppy, just to name a few other individuals who haven't had a season like this, and even sophomores. Megan McHugh comes to mind, Kayla Tobin, different athletes like that haven't had a full year of training like this. This is their first chance to really kind of feel what a full season like this is like, and really kind of put their best foot forward. So I think in terms of, all right, hey, you're projected to be this far behind. It's more of a question now of, all right, how close can we actually get this? How many points can we steal from this team? And different things like that, just to kind of see what happens. And, we've put in a lot of work to try to get there, try to get to certain goals in certain places and whatnot. So we'll kind of see what happens here this weekend, as we'll go up to the University of Wisconsin Superior. You can almost bet if Bethany's basketball teams make it to the conference championship game, that bus ride, we're going to figure out any way possible to get those games up on the screen, maybe even get both games at the same time. We'll see. But, yeah. So aside from, do you have something?
Well, I'm just going to say, exciting times for basketball, for indoor track and field, end of the season approaching. I'm maybe quicker than we're expecting, but also softball too. They got their season started.
Softball to get their season. Yeah, we'll get to softball. They're actually at the time where we're recording this here on Sunday, they just started their second doubleheader here. So you want to get into a little bit of softball here quick?
Oh, for sure.
All right, let's do it.
Second program win on Saturday. They opened their season against Luther College with a 9-7 win in that one, and then a 13-2 beating of McAllister College. So 2 big wins for the program, and like so many other sports, like basketball, we saw a lot of times early in the season a tougher schedule. For them to get 2 wins, they're proving why they were picked number 1 in the coaches poll in the conference.
Yeah, that just came out this past week. I think it took me a little bit by surprise, because normally we'll see like a team like Northwestern. In the past, we've seen like St. Scholastica or something like that kind of taking that top spot. There's been a lot of growth on that women's side. They had a bunch of freshmen come in this year and already kind of taking off and able to score a couple wins. That McAllister game only went 5 innings. They 10-run ruled them pretty early on in that one. So it'll be interesting to watch. I think the biggest thing, and I remember this back from my freshman year in watching our softball team play, is we hosted the tournament and Northwestern came in, I think, as the 5 seed and were able to just win the whole thing. So you definitely can't count like a Northwestern team like that out. But I mean, a good start here for that softball program. And just kind of like basketball, where we saw the women's team projected to be 1, and the for the Vikings, and then the Eagles were projected to be 2, and then on the men's side it was flip-flopped. Same thing happened for baseball. Baseball projections came out. Northwestern projected to win their second conference championship, with Bethany being second behind them. So it's going to be interesting to watch all year long, and I'm assuming a lot of those games are going to be must-watch TV.
Yeah, and with a sport like softball, baseball, obviously lots of parity. Anything can happen in a given game, especially when you look at pitchers have good game, bad game, offense gets going. A lot of ways that you can find a way to win against, theoretically, a better team.
All right. Anything else you want to cover with anything?
Well, one shout out, Kayla Tobin, freshman pitcher for Bethany women's softball, a redhead too. So so go us. But in the 5-inning game against McAllister, she pitched all 5 innings, give up just 1 earned run. So good start to her career.
You picked a good shirt to wear today too. Got the red on, supporting Bethany that way. Picked a good school to go to. I mean, our colors are red and white, so got a lot of red apparel, huh, Gabe?
That's for sure. A lot of red in my what's the word I'm looking for?
Jeans?
No, I got blue jeans
blood?
on. In my blood.
There you go.
In my closet. A lot of
there
red
you go.
in my closet.
All right. Let's get to some interviews. How about?
Let's do it.
All right. First up, we have Coach Lyle Jones here on the Bethany Vikings podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, joining us now on the podcast in his 20th season as head women's basketball coach for the Vikings, and just coached the Vikings to a 3rd straight regular season conference title, head coach Lyle Jones. Lyle, great to have you on the podcast.
It's good to be here. It's always nice to talk a little bit about sports and Bethany. So,
first off, I just want to congratulate you again on winning the 3rd straight regular season conference championship for your team. What was the overall feeling in the locker room afterwards?
Well, it's kind of like every championship the last couple of years. They're just excited. They're throwing water on the coaches and on each other. I know with Ashante, I mean, in this game, she had 3 huge threes, and they were dousing her with some water. And so it was just all that emotion comes out. It was great.
That's awesome to hear. So, as I mentioned, you're in your 20th season as head coach of the women's basketball team here at Bethany, but you've also had other coaching experiences, not just in basketball. At one point, you were a head softball coach. At one point, a defensive coach in football. You've also been an athletic director. What have those different experiences in sports administration and coaching kind of been like and taught you for how you approach coaching here at Bethany?
You know, I think the experiences really do help you in your career. First of all, I think it really makes you think about other programs, the total programs, not just yours. Like at Bethany here as AD, start a softball program, coach soccer here, and it kind of gives you a balance of even men and women. I coach both men and women at the college level, and just the biggest thing I can think of, Jakin, is just you're looking out for every program. You know, and you also get to distinguish between coaching both genders too, and all of those in different sports too. It's kind of like being a dual athlete too. You know, you learn from different sports as far as the physicality goes and the mental part of it. The same thing goes with the coaching. It really helps you with the strategy.
All right. And then again, looking at the past couple of years, you went from 2019, 2020, getting to the round of 32 in the NCAA tournament. Then you had a COVID-shortened season last year. Now back to a full season this year. What was that kind of like for you, for how you approached your duties and jobs as a coach?
Well, I can tell you it was really difficult because as we started this season now, we really looked at our team, and basically they're all freshmen because of the COVID year. I think we only had 10 games, so they're really all freshmen. So you get those freshman mistakes, so to speak, out of the majority of your team. So you're trying to clean up all those aspects of the game, the mental aspects, the physical aspects of just doing things correctly. So being more efficient and effective. Spent a lot of time on that, and we still are. at this point of the season.
That is something that we noticed throughout the years. It was a lot of younger players kind of being able to step up and make plays throughout the season. Looking at your senior leaders in both Hannah and Laura, obviously I think Hannah speaks for herself in terms of the amount of production that she has on the floor, the leadership that she shows, celebrating her teammates and whatnot. But I want to talk about Laura for a second because we've mentioned her a bunch in our broadcasts over the past couple of seasons, that she does all of the little things that don't necessarily show up in the scorebook and the stat sheet and whatnot. What has it been like for you to watch her going from this, quiet, kind of soft-spoken freshman to now this senior leader here for this team?
It's been a journey for me, and also for Coach Purfist, my associate coach, is to see her go from, she came in, she definitely, Jake, and very quiet leadership. And even within the last few weeks, her leadership of individual meetings she's had with a few players saying, if they're down during a few games or maybe they didn't play well, she really picks them up. She's in elementary education. She's going to be a great teacher. She cares a lot about everyone on the team. And then you said, Hannah does it by example. She also does it verbally, but Laura, since she's so quiet, when she does say something, it carries a lot of weight.
All right, looking at this year now, we talked about this with Laura when she was on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and I think we brought it up too with Ashley and Taryn last week. Your schedule this year was by far probably one of the toughest that I've seen in my time here at Bethany, and that a lot of your players have said, it was very demanding. 13 of your first 14 games on the road, you had 4 top 25 opponents on your schedule. What was that like, kind of looking through it beginning of the year and like, all right, yep, this is what we're doing, and off we go?
I think, as you look at the total program, the UMAC program in our conference, if you want to be rated and top in the country, or you want to get looked at for even an at-large bid, you got to have tough people on your schedule. It was the 9th toughest schedule in the country for Division III.
Wow.
And I think the experience that the girls get from that, whether they're close games, and we beat some of those top-rated teams, it really pays off towards the end of the season here. But even to walk into some of those arenas that we play in now, they're state schools, and some of them are brand new. They look like Mankato State's, just beautiful buildings. And they're a little in awe, and then once they start playing, so nothing's going to affect them coming down the stretch here. But I think for our program, for the UMAC conference, it's just great to schedule tough teams. You just learn so much.
I know Laura had mentioned that you had a somewhat of a similar schedule, and maybe it wasn't the exact same teams, but you had a similar schedule in terms of how tough it was going to be, how demanding it was going to be. And she said she was so excited to play that. And then COVID happened. It shortened season, only conference games. Did you feel like the players were all generally like, yep, let's go. We want to, attack this and whatnot, especially at the beginning of the season with wins against UW Oshkosh and Eau Claire? Is that what the feeling kind of was?
Absolutely. And those are some of the returners from that shortened season. But then you got to pull along those freshmen that they don't know anything. They've never been anywhere, or they don't even know what this means to be playing these top-rated teams. They found out real quick what it means. So it was really good, and our returners were really up for it.
So we've seen quite a few just kind of injuries and bugs kind of happen throughout the year to some key players. Sarah Kotke went out with an ACL injury. Taryn Christensen had some of her own injury issues. But then we've also seen a bunch of players kind of step up and fill some pretty key positions down the stretch here late. You mentioned Ashanti Boykin has been playing really, really well the past couple of weeks, kind of taking that point position. Alexis Cloyd and Haley Meyer, both true freshmen, if you will, stepping up and have really kind of grown as the season has gone on. And then even somebody like Ashley Schindel, who has just found the stroke lately. What has that been like when you have so many key players go out and then you have players come in so that way the team doesn't miss a beat?
One thing we talk to those players about, specifically those 4 too, is listen and do. And that's what they've been doing in practice. I'll just take Ashley, for example. We told her, you're offensively a great threat, but you've got to step up your defense, and you've got to play sound, efficient defense. And so she's concentrated on that. Ashante, in practice the last, I think, month, we said, you're going to shoot from these 2 spots in practice. All your shots are coming from here because that's what they're going to leave you open in these spots. Last night, she hits 3 threes, and the opposing coach, Paul, asked me, he goes, what the heck happened with her? I said, well, we've been working on things. So each one of those young ladies is looking at really executing what we've been telling them in practice, and it kind of shows through in how they're playing now.
And it's awesome to see that happen too, especially being able to wrap up the number 1 seed. Let's talk about this past weekend. You had 2 away games at Northwestern and at North Central. As if your schedule wasn't tough enough, having the opponents you had at the beginning of the season, to wrap it up with 2 of the top teams in the conference. What was that like? Give us your thoughts from the games and just kind of overall how you felt the games went and whatnot. We'll start with Northwestern first.
Well, I think with Northwestern or North Central, as far as the team goes, that's why we had that schedule, that preseason schedule. I don't think it really affected them. This is another conference game. Yes, those 2 teams are good, but we've played some top national ranked teams. So let's go in there and let's play. So that's kind of where it was from the team level. Individually, or from the coaching standpoint, we just knew we had to try to get things done. Northwestern's a great team. North Central, I think, is 3rd right now. So having us play basically the top 3 teams on the weekend, it was a great situation, and it could have gone one way or the other. Obviously, with the Northwestern game, it would have been nice to try to get that in overtime. We missed a couple shots, but it's really good for the girls.
One thing I know I had you in class first semester, which was pretty fun.
What did you get in there, an A? Or B?
I think so. I hope it was an A. I'd have to go back and look. But one thing I know, when you were talking about coaching philosophy and different things like that for this year, you were preparing that the defense really needed to step up, and that it wasn't just going to be we can rely on our offense. You were going to have to win on the defensive end, get turnovers, and then be able to take care of the basketball on the other end. Northwestern, we didn't really see that happen in terms of how many turnovers that were forced on that offensive end. Coming into tournament play now, what do you think are going to be some of the keys again to make a tournament run and possibly get back to that national tournament?
I still think defense is the key, and that's a cliche, but it's true. It rings true. Usually your offense is always going to come through. You got your players that can score. We really focus on trying to hold opponents' best players down. And then teams are going to look at, double, triple teaming Hannah. And so our players offensively now are going to have to step up. And we've seen that with Haley Meyer. I think in the last few games, she's probably averaging maybe 17, 18, 19 points a game. Before that, she might have been averaging 6 or 7. So other players are stepping up. Ashley Schindel has stepped up in the shooting area offensively, but we are always stressing defense, and boxing out, rebounding. That gets our fast break going. So as we move into the tournament, same kind of things we're going to be stressing.
It seems like defense really honestly has been the key. Look at the stats. In the first quarter, the Vikings are only outscoring opponents by 12, but then in the fourth quarter, when it comes down to crunch time, you're outscoring opponents by 90. What is kind of the key? Because a lot of people might look at that and say, oh, well, Bethany just gets out slow and finishes fast. Is it just, take a little bit to get the shots falling, but our defensive intensity remains all 4 quarters, or what's kind of the keys with that?
I think it's a lot of things. The intensity definitely on offense and defense. Anytime you come down to crunch time, the intensity level goes through the roof. I think there's also adjustments that are made late in the game, and we're definitely making them in the defensive end and also in the offensive end. Took us a little while, like in our last game with North Central, we kind of flipped to our 21 offense, which kind of spread it so they couldn't double Hannah, and then if they did, we had open threes. So, making adjustments, the intensity level is always going to go through the roof in the fourth quarter.
So let's look ahead now to the conference tournament. You have your first matchup against the 8 seed Northland College Lumberjills. Coverage for that starts at 5:30 on blcvikings.com for those wanting to watch. When you played the Lumberjills a couple weeks ago, they had kind of just a morphing defense that went from a man, then it went to 2-3, then it was 3-2, then all of a sudden it's 1-3-1. As a coach, How is that kind of difficult to adjust to? Because you almost have to play possession by possession to know like what they're going to do on defense.
There's a few things that we do. We have a couple offenses that we run that basically forces them to play what we want. If they're a zone, we can make them play man-to-man by a type of defense or offense that we run. And that kind of goes with teams that try to do that to get you off center. We'll flip right into two of those offenses and run those, and we know exactly what we're going to get out of those.
All right. Final question here for you. And it's not really a question. It's more of a sentence, I guess. But finish the sentence here. Bethany will win their 4th straight conference tournament title if.
Wow, that's a good one. I would say if we'd win our 4th conference title or conference tournament title, if our defense is as hard as it possibly can be and as efficient as it can be. And then offensively, I think we'd win it if we run things correctly. And again, I'm big on this. Mostly people say it's cliche, but efficiency and effectiveness on both ends of the floor are huge. And I think we'll be locked in for that. Again, the last 3 games before you get to a national tournament, people lock in really tight.
Well, we want to wish you all the best. Having the number 1 seed obviously helps, and being able to play those home games as well. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast, and good luck the rest of this week with the conference tournament. This has been Coach Lyle Jones on the Bethany Vikings podcast.
Thanks, Jakin. Nice to be here.
I'm now joined by second-year men's basketball head coach Pat Garvin. Coach, how's it going?
It's going well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, good to have you on. Just to kind of put a perspective on anything, it's been a crazy weekend, a couple extremely tough losses for your team. What does it mean to come home for you, win or lose, and just be a dad?
It's the best thing in the world. Yeah, that's. I'm thankful for it because it helps me get perspective with that. And so, yeah, she's awesome. I'm thankful for her. I have a great wife and a great daughter. Obviously, that really helps put things in perspective. With that, and honestly, we have a great team full of awesome guys that help get through some. They were 2 great games that if you find a way to win them, you're talking about them for a long time, right? And then we just came up a little bit short, but yeah, it's awesome to come home to. She doesn't know if we win or lose, and so I'm thankful for that. When you see a smile on her, and my wife sent me a video of her on the bus ride home last night, and that helped me get over it a little quicker than usual.
For sure. And speaking of your team, the team honored your father, Rick, with a banner in his memory early in November. What kind of influence did he have on you, and what does that gesture say about your program?
Yeah, he had a ton. He was my biggest supporter, biggest fan that I've ever had. And so that was a tough deal this last summer. And for the team to do that and former teammates of mine to honor my dad and my family like that, it was pretty special for me and my entire family. For me to walk out onto the practice floor every day and be able to see him and knew he was watching anyways, but to see that banner, and I look at it every time before games. Before I walk out there, and I know he's watching us. And I know he'd be proud of this team too. He would love this group, and but yeah, my dad was an awesome guy. He was special to me. He was awesome, like I said, awesome dad, and he meant a lot to me. A big influence in my life, just work ethic and integrity on things, and so I'm thankful for the time obviously I had with him, and thankful for those memories, and it was a pretty cool honor for him and my family.
What made you want to get into coaching, and what drew you to as an assistant at Benedictine University in Arizona?
Well, sorry, what was the part of that about Benedictine?
What drew you into
down there?
That area? For sure.
I actually like in high school I had a great high school coach in Trent Skolsky, and him and I had always talked about being a coach, and that was kind of one of my things that I knew I wanted to do. When I was like a freshman in college, I was kind of probably thinking I was going to be a high school social studies teacher and high school coach, and think that'd be a pretty good life. And then college coaches and stuff and other coaches I've had kind of led me into thinking, hey, you should try to do the college thing. And was fortunate to have play for Coach Jedlow and Coach Balza. So I got to see a couple different philosophies on things, and thankful for the time that I had with those guys. And they've I've modeled certain things after each guy that I played for. So I was actually fortunate to be able to play for 2 different coaches like that. And then, thankful for Greg Holstetter to give me a chance right out of when I get done playing. I got hired right back at Bethany my first year, and it gave me a chance. And then Coach Matt Morgenthaler over at MSU has opened a lot of doors for me as far as gave me a chance as a GA, brought me back as a full-time guy. And so that helped the career a little bit, and so what drew me down to Arizona. That was wasn't married yet. We were about to be married, and it was kind of the opportunity. It was a full-time coaching gig. With that, knew the head coach down there a little bit. Knew a lot of people that knew him, and it was really unique down there. It was a brand new program. They had never had. There was first year of athletics down there, first year of the men's basketball program. So I thought it was a unique opportunity to go down there. I was newly married. Go live in Arizona for a couple of years and coach some basketball. So I thought it'd be it was awesome. We had 2 years. We won the league in the second year down there, and tied for the conference championship in our second year down there. And so it was a cool experience. It was great to be. And I decided to come back to the cold winters though after a while. So but no, it was awesome being down in Arizona for sure.
As a head coach here, obviously no fans in the stands last year. Does it feel any different personally when you're coaching in a noisy gym?
Yeah, it makes it more special a little bit. It makes it more fun, for sure. I love our gym. I think our gym gets really loud. With that, we've had great support. We have great support from the community, great support from our student section, and team baseball team leading the way, and other teams that have been out there supporting us. It's been awesome. It makes it fun. That's what it's supposed to be, right? And especially this time of year in college basketball, going on the road, there was great crowds at Northwestern and North Central. That's why you play. That's why you coach, is to compete in those kind of environments. And so it's fun. It makes it more fun. It's last year we had like 20 people in the stands. It was still cool, right? You're still competing, but it makes it a little more special when you got some people out there.
You mentioned something a couple of weeks ago in your post-game press conference that caught my attention. Speaking of the Friday-Saturday schedule, you prep for Friday's opponent all week. And when I listen to that, I'm thinking to myself, can that really be true? Tell me the reasoning behind doing it that way. And then does your coaching staff, do they work on Saturday's opponent ahead of time?
Yeah, I'll answer the second part. Yes, 100%. We watch film on both teams throughout the week. So yeah, we definitely, as a staff, prepare for both games, both Friday and Saturday. But as a team, yeah, we focus all in on Friday. I just think it's too hard to retain 2 scouting reports and game plans throughout the week. That's the number one reason behind it. So we may intermix some ideas here and there on Tuesday, do a shell drill that might prep us for how we might guard an opponent on Saturday. But for 99% of what we do in practice throughout the week is, first off, a lot of it's about us anyways, in our game plan and what we're going to do offensively and things and stuff. So and then you spend time on your defensive game plan, how you're going to guard things. And I just think it's too tough to remember 2 different game plans like that. And so when you do Friday, Saturday, you're all in on that Friday night. Like I said, the staff's prepared. We know what the game plan is going to be come Saturday. And then guys show up. We watch film of Saturday's opponent on Saturday mornings, give them the scouting report. We go through it. We do a walkthrough on the floor and just talk about it. A lot of times on Saturday, it's the deeper, tougher teams that win those games, and because it's tough. That's a quick turnaround the Friday, Saturday. When I was assistant at MSU playing, and when we were in the NSIC, obviously it was Friday, Saturday as well, and so and that's how we did it over there as well.
Jared's been playing great recently. Brian has been really good all season, as expected. What can you say about their leadership, and then also guys like Kyrie, Jacob, and Jarrett?
Yeah, we have phenomenal senior leadership. Obviously, you mentioned Brian's been great all year. Jarrett's just an ultimate do-it-all guy. I mean, he's a wing that's going to leave here as the career leader in rebounds. So that sums up his career to me in a nutshell right there, as far as just a do-it-all guy. With that, phenomenal, kind of just goes about his business and leads by example from that standpoint. Not only is he going to lead that, and then he scores over 1,000 points too. So he's just a combo guy like that. Is pretty special with that. But our senior group as a whole, they've won a ton of games. They've had really special careers here, and hopefully they got a special week coming up here as well. But they've had yeah. I mean, obviously Brian's been fantastic. Kyrie having him coming off injury, like missed the entire year. That's hard to do. And then he's had a couple of injuries throughout this year as well, and he just keeps showing up. Warrior keeps working with that. When he is out, he's a phenomenal teammate on the bench. things. Jacob as well. Jacob's role has changed at times throughout the year. He was starting. He was coming off the bench. We asked him to play the 4, guard the 5, guard a point guard. So we asked him to do a lot of things, and he just puts his head down and goes to work with that. And he's Jared as well. JT, it's unfortunate, right? He's the last year of his career, and I think he got hurt like the last open gym before the first day of practice. And has basically been hurt the entire year then, had to have ankle surgery as well. But again, guy that's at practice every day, great teammate. Guys love having him on the road trips, all those things. And so that speaks a lot about his character. That's going to carry over well for him when he's done here.
Looking at your 5 conference losses this year, combined 17 points. I mean, that's not even a blowout differential in a single game. Tied with a minute to go at Northland. Led the whole way hosting North Central until the overtime period. 17-point lead against Northwestern at home, within 2 in the final minute. Led by 5 with under 2 minutes to play at Northwestern, and then led by 2 in the final minute last night. I mean, what do you say in the locker room to the guys when these tough losses, I mean, they could conceivably take a toll on your team?
Thanks for that reminder. It's a different message after each game, but that I think it's a credit to, like last night I walked in the locker room and guys already were saying 100% what I was going to tell them. And so when you got veteran guys, they know we're right there in these games, and that's the reality of college basketball. It's the reality of conference games in college basketball. It's going to come down to the wire. And so you got to make some coaching adjustments. You got to make some plays and see what happens, right? And so they've all been great games. We just, like I said, just came up short on those things. Our message is you got to show up the next day regardless, right? When you win on a Friday night, you got to put that win away and show up on Saturday ready to win. If you lose on Friday, you got to do the same thing. And our guys bounce back after those tough losses on some Friday nights has been phenomenal. And I have zero doubt that we will show up ready to work this week and see what happens.
It seems like you can beat anyone. To be the 4 seed, what's the message going into the tournament?
Yeah, everyone's 0-0, right? I mean, everyone in December when we opened up conference weekends had the same goals. All 8 teams this week have the same goals. That you take it one day at a time. You show up ready to work, and by this time of year, everyone's going to know what everyone's going to be doing. You kind of are who you are, and you got to enjoy it. You got to go out there and play to win the game and see what happens, but have a lot of fun. At a conference this time of year, it's great, and so you got to enjoy it. You got to appreciate the time you're around each other and see what happens.
Can you take anything from your playing days at Bethany heading into the UMAC tournaments? Obviously, you were a 1 seed heading into the tournament, the 2011-12 season. Northwestern coincidentally ended up winning that tournament. Any sort of takeaways from that you can give to the guys?
Yeah, I think like we already talked about, you having some fun, right? Those are some special memories that I'll look back on. Obviously, we came up short in title games both years and stuff, but it was a lot of fun to play in those games and the big moments. Actually, Coach Gross and I on Friday night before the game were talking about a couple of those games when I played, and so it's about enjoying it and having some fun and just going out there playing your tail off and like I said, see what happens.
Your defense recently has seemed to step up at times, obviously against Northwestern, a huge defensive night. Your next game against Wisconsin Superior, you've played them twice. You opened the tourney against them last year. They're a physical team. What do you need to do to get the win?
Oh, yeah, they're an extremely, extremely good defensive team. They're really tough on the basketball. They do a great job in their ball screen coverage, being very physical with you. They rebound the ball extremely well. They got some size and really good guard play with that. So the number one thing we got to do is come out, match their toughness and physicality for sure with that, and then be ready to guard. You got to if they're going to guard you got to be ready to guard them with that. Try to get up and down a little bit in transition with that. But we got to come out, match their physicality and toughness. Know it's going to be a great game and approach it that way, and just go be ourselves.
Final question here. Between a 7-game win streak, the growth that you've seen as a team after Christmas, especially some freshmen stepping up, and Riley and Ryan and Drew, what are you proudest of so far this year of your guys?
Our guys they've never quit. They've never quit with that, and that's top to bottom. That's not just guys that are getting minutes. We got guys that don't step on the floor, and they show up every day in practice and work hard and have a great attitude. Our team energy on our bench has been phenomenal this year, and so I'm just really proud of the fact that we've faced some adversity, right? Some tough losses, some injuries, some things up and down with some things. We played an extremely tough non-conference schedule to prep us for it. With that, we handled the ups and downs of that extremely well. Guys in and out of the lineup all year long, really. really. And so this might be the most I've changed the starting lineup ever on any staff I've been a part of. And so our guys just show up every day ready to work, and they've never lost confidence. They've never lost confidence in themselves, in each other, in the staff. And that says a lot. And so I think we lost North Central and Northwestern at home to fall under 500 in conference. And I said, there's gonna be a lot of people that are doubting some things right now. And it's got to be about these guys in this locker room. And they made it about that, and they've trusted it, and they kept working, and they're going to keep working. And that's what I'm really proud about, is I know zero doubt that at least, who knows what's going to happen with results, right? But that nothing's guaranteed in life with those things. But I know we're going to play hard, show up, represent things the right way. And that's what I'm most proud of.
That was Coach Garvin joining the Bethany Vikings podcast. Coach, thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Joining us now on the Bethany Viking podcast, a coach who's had experience coaching at the Division I level and internationally as well in China. Currently in his 7th year as head coach of both the cross country and track and field programs here at Bethany. Head coach Michael Dunn, welcome to the podcast, Coach.
I appreciate it. I didn't know if I was going to make it here today.
Glad you did. Let's talk about your China experience for a second and what that was like, going to a different country kind of early on in your coaching career. What was the experience like? What were some things you maybe brought from that experience over here to Bethany, and just kind of talk about that experience?
Oh, man. So, yeah, digging deep here. I definitely was interested in always traveling. Like, I loved traveling around the world. I was blessed with opportunities to do that. And my family's actually been to China a couple times, and they have a few colleges that they visited there, and one was wanting to start a track and field program. And they had a track and field all set up, outdoor facilities. They had a weight room right on under the bleachers. They had windows out to the field, so it was like super nice facility and everything. And when I got out there, and they talked about, what the position would all entail and how they wanted to build a track and field program. It was exciting because I've, been involved in track and field my whole life, high school, college. I kind of seen behind the scenes stuff to help out coaches and stuff like that as well when I was in college myself. And so being able to, kind of hear how much they wanted to build it up and make it more like, what had gone on in the U.S. for track and field programs. I thought, okay, I've seen that. I want to be able to do that. I didn't know a lick of Chinese. So this is like, I knew ni hao. And, washer maguire, that means I'm an American. A couple things you learn like right when you get over there. And then you start, jiaozi, right? And like my favorite food when I was there. You got to figure out your favorite food.
Okay.
But, I think just in general, being able to get over, to China was always something that I thought would be fun, because it's different than Europe. There's a lot of unique things to it. And I remember the day one, it was raining, and I got out there to meet the team, and had a translator and was talking with the team. And that was something in itself, having a translator. You're hoping that it works, but we've all played telephone tag, and we know how that works too. Mm-hmm. So I remember we met in the weight room, and I was like, hey, we're going to go out on the track and warm up. And everybody kind of looked at me like I was, obviously an American, but also foreign in a sense of like, what are you talking about? They'd never ran in the rain before. And so all these individuals, they're majoring in track and field. You're not in a English class and then you're majoring in, philosophy or English or anything like that. And you're in track and field. You're majoring in track and field. So there's about 20 some per gender. And it was very unique because, again, they'd experienced something completely new day one, going outside in the rain, realizing that they could train outside, and it's not just weightlifting days. And distance group never realized you could train off a track. So, we were running around town, and we had cars of, Chinese literally like following us, Jiao, 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 cheering us on. That means go, go, go. Mm-hmm. Come on. And so we would just have these, trains of vehicles following us on the road because they thought it was so different. So it was very exciting to kind of be a part of that and see that grow. And at the end of the whole experience, we kind of had a provincial championship, which would kind of equate to like high school state, but in college, that's kind of how they do their track and field final championships. And we ended up doing all right. We finished like 4th or something out of 12. And top 5 actually got like trophies all based on height, but they were all NBA style trophies. So
Really?
Pat and Lyle would have been over the moon to see these things, but it was just a basketball sitting on top of a trophy, and it very much looked like an NBA Finals trophy.
That's
so
awesome.
Yeah, but it was pretty exciting to be able to see, because we walked away with some hardware that year, and was able to train a few other coaches, but the experience in general was crazy. I mean, it was just so, like I said, different than Europe and whatnot, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat, but it was a lot of fun.
So you talk about winning a trophy, about the size of the Larry O'Brien trophy for the NBA. Now you've come here and you've been the coach for several conference championship winners. Most recently, Kayla Tobin winning cross country for the first time in program history for a female athlete to win a cross country individual championship like that. Track and cross country have often been labeled like individual sports. For you, and working with as many individuals as you do, how do you kind of go about developing relationships with athletes who can specialize in different events? Because you're working with all the distance people, all the sprints people, all the jumpers, all the throwers and different things. How do you kind of go about developing those relationships?
I mean, it's very much a puzzle. I think every individual brings something special to our program, and it's different, right? Somebody might come in and say they're looking for an experience of being part of a collegiate athletic program. Somebody might be coming in and saying, hey, I want to be a conference champion. I want to qualify for big meets. I want to have a chance to go out to our regional qualifier in Chicago. I want to be the first Bethany track and field athlete to qualify for a Division III national meet. Those are things that everybody comes in with kind of just a different mindset. But one thing that I find, at least for me, that I get the most out of each individual is that they bring passion, they bring drive, they bring, a sense of, hey, I'm belonging here because I'm able to contribute this way, and this way. And so for me as a coach with different event groups and working with each individual, beyond just the practice and meet element, the human element of it, like I can look at each of these individuals and say, okay, you're going to grow this way. You're going to grow this way. You're going to grow this way. This is your weakness. This is your weakness. And being able to help them as much as I can through this. And in that process, hopefully, they're growing, on the track in their running events, or they're growing in the jumps as well, and the throws. And I think so trying to build that family here has been a way for me to be able to, I guess, encompass everyone in a sense of saying like, I want to be able to bring it for our best athlete, that has maybe won a championship now already and wanting to win more and more and more, or the athlete that's coming in without that experience or without having that that background in success. And so I want these individuals to understand that no matter where you are on that spectrum, you're going to have the same from me as a coach.
Let's talk about some individuals now on the team and performances they've had this year. We'll start with Kayla Tobin, who I mentioned a little earlier, who not only won the conference championship individually for cross country in the fall, she's also the defending indoor 3K and was a part of the DMR championship team from last year. Obviously, last year was a very different season from what a lot of coaches and a lot of athletes were accustomed to. No cross country in the fall. Indoor looked very different than what it does now. What have you seen from Kayla in terms of her growth and being able to really just keep getting after it in practices and stuff from last year to now?
Oh man. I mean, there's so much you see as a coach, individuals growing in, across the board. But I think Kayla has found a way to be able to use, whether it's, I don't know if energy is the right word, but adrenaline, she's able to use everything that kind of builds up, from her day, from her week. And I think she's able to channel it a lot more. And it's easy coming in and kind of, flying by the seat of your pants as a freshman and being able to, kind of just get out there and do your best. But when you do have that kind of title now, and you're somebody that not just on our team that people know you, but your conference too, it's different. So I think it's just continuously pushing that limit, continuously doing your best in training and everything, and then trusting in that process. And she's been able to really immerse herself into that. I mean, a lot of people don't know about Kayla too. Like, she has come from, high school, not, having the success that she's had here. And so she's changed like her own, immersiveness into what she's doing day in and day out. And, I really believe she's inspiring a lot of people. And there's individuals that, look at Bethany and say, hey, like, look what this, young woman's doing. Like, I want to be able to go and do that. And she does it so much more than just what she's doing, like I said, with times on the track. But she's incredible. And she's like I said, very much so moving in the right direction in a lot of aspects of her life right now.
You talk about inspiring too. I mean, it's easy to look at Bethany right now. You see people like Hannah Geisfeld, Kayla Tobin. Let's talk about another young woman who has found success in Stephanie Whitbrod, who I wrote down here as crazy athletic, but I think that's an understatement because she is a person that is very high energy, but also can just do just about anything you ask her. She has a background in gymnastics and cheerleading. She's competed internationally as well in Australia, doing things like that. How is it working with an athlete like Steph who, she'll do the jumps, she'll do the throwing, she'll do, just about anything besides wanting to do the running. And then you have to turn around and then go work with an athlete like Kayla, who I want the 10K, I want the 5K, I want the 3K. What's kind of like the balance that you kind of have to find as a coach working with different athletes like that?
Oh man. I mean, Kayla would do anything if you asked her to, but that's the thing is you figure out these individuals and like, what are they going to be able to do to most effectively grow as an individual and help the team? And I think, Stephanie does. I mean, her background's very different than Kayla. She has had a lot of success in high school. And when it comes to what, she's doing now, I mean, being able to talk to an individual like Steph about, multiple events, in different event areas, is in a way almost, it's more similar than you think it would be as talking to somebody like Kayla about, a couple events that are in the same event group. Because, the approach of what a student athlete should be taken to whatever event they're in is relatively the same. And you got to put in the work. I think somebody like Steph might be doing, multiple event workouts in a couple days, whereas Kayla's just, focusing on grinding away at, mileage and getting after some distance workouts and stuff. So, I think the drive, the time commitment, the sacrifice is there from both of those athletes. And honestly, you see that with athletes that, like Hannah Geisfeld, like the sacrifice, the commitment, the dedication, all that pays off. And it's not, like I said, it's not always necessarily about, the time of an athlete running or the mark, but you see the consistency meter maybe bumping up and they're constantly doing well in these areas. And there's a lot of individuals, on the team that have that, and including you, Jake. And I think that's kind of cool to be able to, see. And like you said, be on this podcast. And I doubt you're asking me too many questions about yourself because that's just who you are. But I think you're in that category when it comes to that too. And just being able to know that it's a process of sacrifice, dedication, finding yourself, and both Steph and Kayla have that. And as a coach, it's just managing the events that they're doing that in, and then also trying to keep them mentally not too high, not too low.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And there have been moments where we bring up the accomplishments that I've had being a part of the team and whatnot. I was even being told, like, are you sure you want to interview Coach Dunn? I'm like, yes, I do. Just because I also love to talk about what my teammates are doing. One of those teammates being Jake Marzinski, who, being able to watch him, he always jumps so far. And I want to talk about triple jump specifically with Jake. First off, he's not the first person from his family taking part in this team. He's actually coached by his sister, Danielle Wold. And it's not the first brother-sister kind of duo that you've seen here on the team either. You currently have two that I know of, and myself and my sister, Naomi Anderson, but then also Sienna and Josiah Hoppy as well. You talk about family so much and like the team being a part of the family. What's it like seeing not only brothers and sisters from the same family being on the team, kind of adding that family aspect, but then having Danny and Jake working together in that jumps department?
Yeah, it's really special. We actually had Marissa Voss and her dad on the team a couple of years ago too. And,
That's right.
And being able to see that dynamic take place, and I don't know if a lot of listeners know necessarily about like Marzinski family, but in general, I mean, Danielle had some great success here. She had quite a few of our records for a while, and then Kari came along. And Kari started dropping, those records down a little bit more. And I even when Kari graduated, I talked about how I think she is one of the most underrated athletes that's gone through Bethany ever in the history of Bethany athletics. But she was one of the most extremely athletic women that I believe I've ever coached, and regardless of where I've coached. And just talent-wise, it's crazy with that Marzinski family. And Jake, like I said, or like you've talked about as well, he kind of, he's grown up, and, I've had those inside conversations a little bit with Danny in the past too. But, Jake, you can kind of tell from, Danny said, yeah, Jake was kind of, picked on a little bit by us older sisters when we had a chance. But you see like that drive in him, like that kind of made him like, hey, I'm going to go do what my sisters are doing. I want to go and be able to accomplish those things and have that success and get after it like them. And, I think family is a big part of, how we're able to, grow and what we're able to kind of latch on to be able to push ourselves. And so when we talk about, seeing those family members, the Sauer family was here, and they were able to, get after things. And with you and your sister, you see a lot of kind of uniqueness because everybody's different. Their sibling is different than who they are. And I think that's something that I very much want siblings to know is, no, you're not coming here because your brother or your sister are here. You're not, like, I'm not training you the way that I would train your brother or your sister. I'm training you for what is the best way for you to train to become successful. And that's going to be different for everybody. So it's really cool to see those dynamics, and then that family shift to, like I said, our whole program, our whole team, and wanting everybody to kind of feel like brothers and sisters here.
It definitely does feel that way a lot. And for those of you who maybe haven't seen our track and field team, interacting in public and whatnot, it definitely is like a big, family, a lot of fun arguments and different things, picking on each other and whatnot. But at the end of the day, there for each other. And that especially is kind of heightened at this conference time, which we'll take a look at conference now. We'll start on the women's side. Currently Minnesota Morris, I think, was tabbed as gonna be the top team, but you very much a big like stats guy, looking at numbers, looking at times, comparing things and different things like that, have seen the gap between Morris and Bethany shrinking over the past couple of weeks. What events are you kind of looking at, and what events would you say, hey listeners, if you want to see like how this is gonna, if you want to see an exciting race or different things like that, what events are some of the key events that you're kind of looking at?
I think it's hard to really, and I will pinpoint some, but it's hard to really pinpoint a couple because of the fact that there are just going to be so many. And again, track and field is full of different events, and every race is going to be meaningful when it comes to, at the end of the day, the championship points. But, I think some areas that we're going to need to really look at are some of those mid-distance to distance events, because I know that, Morris has great mid-distance and distance athletes, and depending on what they're doing and how they're doing that day, and how our mid-distance and how our distance athletes are doing that day, and how other teams' mid-distance and distance athletes are doing that day, it can change a lot. So those, I think, are going to be big races. Even if you're excited to see, maybe some all-conference opportunities, there's a lot of events out there as well. But I think the jumping events, when it comes to triple, long, high, I mean, we want to be able to get after those and get after them good and hard. We're going to need points there for sure. And then, we talk about where points can be won and lost. And I think we really need to see how Morris comes through in some of those sprinting events, because if they can do well there, it's going to be tougher. But if they get pushed by, other teams in our conference and us as well, like it's going to be a game changer. So I think there's a lot that we still need to be able to do. And I think at the championship level, experience is a big deal. And as you and a lot of people that follow us know, we are a very young team for both men and women. But that doesn't change the fact that, we've put ourselves in a position to kind of get after it and have a good meet. And so we go out there and we do our best, and that's all we can do.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it, only 2 seniors this year on both teams for both men and women. So basically the whole core is coming back for another run at it next year, going to have that year under their belt and different things like that. Let's look at the men's side now. Right now, Wisconsin Superior is projected to win by about 180 points. The next closest team is Northwestern, projected at around 110 or something like that. You've talked about how it's going to take like 4 or 5 teams just to equal the score that Superior is projected to get. But this Vikings team has a chance to possibly battle for second with Northwestern. They're right neck and neck for that second spot. Again, same kind of question. Like, what are some of the key events that you feel are going to kind of ultimately decide who gets that second spot behind Superior, who is far and out ahead of everybody else right now?
Yeah, I mean, Superior is just so strong in so many different areas this year. I mean, I don't think we've ever seen as dominant a team as we are this year from what Superior has. It's pretty crazy when you think about even the second and third place team, not being, for us in Northwestern, again, like we should both be, getting up triple digits for points, which is pretty good. If you can get over 100, that's a good weekend. But I think it's just mind-boggling to know, like, you had our points up, you had a couple other teams' points up, and maybe we can get Superior. That in itself just shows their depth. But events that we're gonna need, this weekend for sure. I mean, we always like to get after relays, but I think there's going to be some relays that are going to be very impactful. I mean, last year it came down to the last relay for us to take out to beat Crown. So, and I think, there's no reason why that can't kind of be the end for this as well with Northwestern this year. So I think relays are going to be important. I also think when it comes to being able to get those points in areas that we need them, we know that, we've got to get points where we can in distance. We got to get points where we can in mid distance. One thing that's definitely been kind of holding us back a little bit this year, it seems like we've had injuries a lot this year. We've had COVID close contacts. We've had all this stuff that, every team's dealing with. But for some of our athletes, we just never really got going. And Will Dower is one of those guys where it's like, hey, you're going to be getting after it this next weekend, and this is really like your third meet of the year.
Yeah, I know Jake too. He was out the first, he
was out until the end of January.
Yeah.
And I think, for them, the nice thing is too, like, yeah, it's resting you up, but you're not getting that competition. And I think for us too, we're hoping that with a little bit of recovery from this last weekend and kind of how we've been building as the season goes on, we hope that we're ready to roll. But I think you don't want to show all of our cards for like events necessarily for men or women, but
for sure.
I do know that there's going to be some good events, field events as well as running events, and ideally everybody's watching all weekend. Live stream it on your computer, put it on silent, throw it on for the day or whatever, and just check it out. But I think there's plenty to see, and no matter what you're watching, at whatever time you're likely going to be watching one of your fellow classmates or for sure a Bethany, college mate that's going to be out there competing.
Is it crazy for you, going back to the whole COVID protocol, Jake getting a late start, is it crazy for you to see him go out and jump, a 14.18 meter jump, have a whole meter on the rest of the conference and be ranked right now nationally in the top 25 off of basically like little to no like actual practice work in practice?
Jake is interesting. The Marzinski family is all interesting, but I think recovery has a lot to do with that, being like slow to go. And by that, I mean, just like taking a couple weeks. Jumping is very different too. You know, it's not that he hasn't been doing anything. He's been able to get out and do some drill work. He's been able to do a little bit of strength work here and there. It's not the same as what he'd be able to do potentially, but you know, triple jump is a really hard event on your legs. It's kind of like running a 5K. You know, very different events, but as far as how much it does to like break down your body, you need a lot of recovery after you do that. So you can't do a 5K every week. You can't go and do triple jump necessarily every week. So having a little bit of that rest in there, I think has really allowed him to just, you know, maybe hopefully feel a little bit more fresh. And, you know, with this last week of recovery, hopefully going into conference, he's able to kind of feel the same.
All right. Everything for the schedule and whatnot for field events and track events, as well as things like the program and live results and everything, can be found on the conference's website under the championships tab. You just scroll down to the indoor track and field championships. Final question I have for you, Coach, and this is going back to the women's side of the meet. You've coached a lot of individual conference champions. What would it mean for you to have that team banner drop for the first time?
Oh man. I mean, individual banners have been great and they always will be. They're incredible. It's really hard, as you personally know, Jake, to win a championship. Like, I don't think people necessarily understand, like, yeah, you could be the best going in, but if you're not feeling great, or if you have a couple other events that are going on, or, you know, if the tactics of that event are different that day, which happens every year, it's not the same. It can be taken away in a snap. And so I think being able to just, as a team, you know, we've been wanting to build the right team for both men and women since I got here, with individuals, not just, you know, a handful of individuals that kind of carry that dedication and that work ethic and that drive, but for a team to do it, like, you have to have everybody on board for that. And, in this group that we have right now, again, they're getting close. They're getting really close to being able to have an entire team that has kind of what you need in your toolbox to be able to get it done. And so, you know, we really hope that, you know, this weekend that stuff takes play. We know experience matters. We know we're a young group, but you got to take those chances. You know, when you're there, you've got to get after it, and the women's team is on board to get after it the way they need to, and we'll see how the cards fall in a way. But I think, you know, Morris is such, you know, a sound team. They've been there before. They've done it before multiple times, and so, you know, we just want to. We're kind of, you know, Cinder at the ball. I mean, we're not like invited. We're not necessarily like the person that's like, hey, you know, this is the group that you should be watching. But I think in general, we're here and we're feeling like we're knocking on the door a little bit. And I think that's really exciting because, like I said, or like you were mentioning, you know, how it means to me. Like, it means more to me how the student athletes get their experience and what they get from their experience. And when you can do that as a team, as every individual on this team will find out, whenever that day is that we get to do something like that, you realize that every single person has put in what needs to be done to get there, you know, and both Lyle and Pat, like they know what that can mean and how that feels as a group. And so I think just being able to have a shot here is exciting, and we're not there yet, but I think being able to you know, do that would be very special, because again, as a coach, that's what you want. You want to have a team championship. You want everybody to be able to live in that glory a bit.
For sure. Well, we want to thank you for taking the time out to come on the podcast and talk a little bit about, you know, your coaching experience and giving us a look inside of track and field and whatnot. And best of luck this weekend as we'll go up to Wisconsin Superior, have a fun 2 days up there competing for conference.
Yeah, you too, Jacob.
Yeah. Thank you. So, heard from all three coaches. I mean, it's always fun being able to kind of interview and hear about the different sports going on and whatnot, and what the coaches kind of have for takes and things like that. Yeah, looking at the week in advance, it's going to be a jam-packed week in terms of events. We have basketball starting Tuesday. Again, women's basketball hosts Northland at 5:30. Men's basketball will host Superior at 7:30. And then from there, we'll figure out who they play, where, when, how, why, and all that stuff as it kind of happens. Track and field will be at the University of Wisconsin Superior on Friday and Saturday. We'll have softball with another round of double headers at the Bubble over at MSU Saturday and Sunday. And then men's and women's tennis will have a meet at St. Mary's University. And then in just a little short while, we'll even have baseball starting as they have a doubleheader coming up at the beginning of March. March Madness is upon us.
What a crazy, hectic time of year. And again, no better time to be a Bethany sports fan.
I mean, you get so many different sports going on at the same time and whatnot. And spring just around the corner. As we're recording the podcast today, it's 50 degrees out. Fantastic weather. Probably going to go and get a run in and just be outside and whatnot. But any final thoughts you have from what we heard from the different coaches and just kind of looking forward at the week?
Well, it's always fun to hear from them and get their perspective on things. Both of them are great. All three of them are great interviews, right? And for that run for you, you better get that in quick. This weather's going to change. It won't feel like spring for long.
Minnesota weather is always fun because we go from 50 degrees one day to now we're talking about snow and a lot of it coming up. But yeah, for this episode, that pretty much just wraps it up for myself and for Gabe. We'll have Brock back next week, and who knows who we'll have on next week. And I'm sure we're gonna get a good feeling for updates from the conference tournament. We're gonna take a look at softball and baseball, probably start getting rolling on covering that stuff, and even take a look at tennis too and whatnot. And who knows, we might just have a 50-minute long conversation about stuff. You never know.
Because why not?
And because why not? Exactly. But for myself and for Gabe, we thank you for listening to the Bethany Vikings podcast. We'll see you next week.